How the hell does someone even get onto Shark Tank?
So we applied. So we had to really try to convince my sister to get on because she doesn't really like attention. She's the eldest, right, in the family. So we had started the industry. So no one had disrupted or changed the gift-giving industry since like the early 2000s. So we came in with this new dessert box gift-giving company. Let's put dessert in a box and send it. And we had to convince people that the gifts you were sending before are boring. And we had to re-educate the market on start sending a dessert box as a gift. And then so we started that and we had no competition for the first probably year of business. But then every second person was starting a dessert box company because it's not a revolutionary idea. It's very easy. You grab a donut, you put it in a box, you send it off. Like realistically, if you think of it that way, it's really not hard. There's low cost to entry, low barrier to entry. And then Shark Tank was on and we said to our sister, if we don't go on and establish ourselves as the leader and the creator of a dessert box, someone else is going to do it. So we applied without her knowing and we got on. You go through a lot of psychological testing to get onto the show. Because they want to make sure that, you know, this isn't the be-all, end-all if you don't get the investment or if you get online trolls.
They're reducing the liability because if they ruin your dreams, they don't want you to go and do something bad. So if you don't have thick skin. How did you pass the psychological testing?
Honestly, I don't know. To this day, I don't know. It obviously wasn't strict requirements. But they test you all individually. So 3 of us individually, then all together. And we got a very good edit on the show because it was the whole first generation Australian approach.
They were very friendly.
They were. They were. So
very good.
That we got lucky with.
Awesome. Let me talk to you about your numbers. Because we're accountants and obviously numbers.
Don't ask me hard questions. Talk about
very
the numbers.
easy.
How do you work out what a net asset is on a balance sheet?
Talk to me about your balance sheet.
Let's get back and say what's an asset, what's net.
All right. No. So these numbers are public, which is the only reason I'm bringing this up. So year one, it was 2017 when you went on to Shark Tank. Pre-TikTok, pre-Instagram, like this is pre-ecom really being accessible to the general public. So 2017, in your first year, your first 12 months, you do $2 million in sales. They made a big deal out of that show, which they should. You grossed 1.25 mil, which is 62.5% gross profit. I always say in ecom, you really want to get to 60, 70%. That's the only time your business can actually survive ups and downs and ROASs and whatever. And then you make a net of $810,000 all in your first year. You netted $810,000. That's 40.5% of your GP.
What he's saying is very good. Give him the.
You made a lot of money, yes.
To give you perspective, like 40.5% is like this is ridiculous. These are unbelievable numbers. Okay, in your first year. Talk me through, you've just conned your brother and your sister into leaving their corporate job. You've started the business, $0 to $2 million in sales in 12 months. How do you get your first sale? How do you get to your first quarter in record-breaking sales? And what's the traction? What's the path?
Yeah, so let's go back a step.
Please.
So prior to Dessert Boxes, we started a company called Caterco. So Caterco is a company that kind of wanted to revolutionize the drink stations at events. So it was a young Thai coconut and we would brand the front. So let's say we can have Latitude Accountants on the front and you'd have it at your events. So we started with that. And then it was around January time, January, early Feb. So end of Jan, early Feb, which is a quiet time for us. We were sitting around. My brother and sister still had their full-time jobs at this point. I was the only one that had left. I was freelancing. That's what you call yourself when you're unemployed. I was freelancing.
/ freeloading.
And I said to my brother, so I remember we were sitting in the room and do you remember when Tellaballs had just started? Yes. They launched a milkshake with a Nutella donut on top and that was like the beginning of the food porn game. Wow, they put a donut on a shake. It was revolutionary in the food space. Yeah. So I said to my brother, why hasn't anyone created a Nutella dessert gift that you can send to someone, specifically men? Because who caters to the men gift-giving market? There's a lot for women. With flowers, hampers, candles, balloons. But what do you send a guy for Valentine's Day? Yeah. So we started collaborating.
A way to a man's heart.
Food, stomach, right? Yeah. So we collaborated with other dessert makers at the time to get them to make us a sole exclusive Nutella dessert, put it in a box and sell it. You're going to like this number. In a week, we sold 400 units. Wow. This was through our Caterco page. And we took them all manually. So they would DM us, we'd write it down. Yeah. We set up a table in front of my parents' garage. We had all the boxes. It was one box. We only offered one box. Yeah. And we hadn't called it a dessert box. Like that concept hadn't existed yet. I just wanted to put desserts in a box for Valentine's Day and sell it, people would rock up to my parents' house and then we'd mark their name off on a paper,
Wow,
one by one, 400
Amazing.
units. Yeah. And it was at that point that we thought to ourselves, there's something in this. So then we started dessert boxes. So we did have an audience to leverage off. And then we started dessert boxes. And it was on Valentine's Day. So we always launch on a gift-giving occasion. So whether it be our biggest ones are Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Easter, Father's Day, Christmas.
Can I ask, why did I don't know how well the coconut one went, but all I know is dessert boxes now. Why did the dessert one work? And the have you ever thought about why didn't the coconut one work? If you're the same audience, just different product, like what's in that?
So the coconut one did work. We still run that business.
Awesome. There you go.
So we still run it.
Yeah.
We don't push it as much. It's interesting because no one in Sydney does what we do from the coconut perspective. So we're the only one that brand coconuts. I don't push it as much because I'm very, business owners will hate this. If I'm bored, I'm over it. Like, I'm not going to sit there and push a business if it doesn't excite me. So I think that's where, it's kind of like a downfall for me. So that's why we didn't really push Caterco, and dessert boxes took so much of our time. But we do still run Caterco. We still have our consistent corporate orders, or when there's an activation where they want their branding on the front. It's a very summer product. It's a seasonal product.
Yes.
So it still runs. But in terms of why was dessert boxes more successful, our strategy was very different.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in a moment because obviously it's a big part. But just on Shark Tank, you go in, you release the numbers. Everyone's going to froth over those numbers. Like if you give me a business in that, I'm investing every dollar of my money too. So what happens after? So you make a deal, right? What happens after the show, after the edits and it goes on TV? Two questions. One, did you have the Shark Tank effect where you sell out ridiculously, your website crashes? And then number two, what practical, do they do due diligence? Like what happens? Talk me through that.
So we went on to Shark Tank purely for publicity. Right. There was no way I was splitting my business 4 ways.
No way.
I already split it 3 ways. Like, who were you to come in and now take a percentage of the business? So we purely went on for publicity.
Right.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, it's a reality show.
Yeah.
So they tell you, if we tell you to accept the offer on screen, you have to accept it. If we tell you not to, you don't accept it. Right. So it is a reality show at the end of the day. Yes. Did our business boom overnight? Yes. And it also forced us to go national. So we were only Sydney-wide, Sydney and Wollongong, when we first started. But then when we knew that our Shark Tank episode was going to air, we were like, we're getting national exposure. So why aren't we Australia-wide? So it forced us to do that. But the business boom. Don't ask me numbers, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know it made a lot more money after the episode aired. But yeah, we boomed after Shark Tank.